It was supposed to be a routine systems check, just a silent drill. But 620 feet below the surface of the Philippine Sea, routine had no meaning. Inside the USS Barrington, a U.S. Navy Virginia-class attack submarine, every movement was deliberate, every breath calculated. The only sound was the soft hum of the nuclear reactor, buried deep behind layers of titanium, cold and steady, until it wasn't. An abrupt mechanical hiss pierced the silence. Everyone in the control room froze. No one moved, not even to speak. Commander. Eric Maddox slowly turned from the navigation panel. His steel-gray eyes scanned the room, then settled on the aft sonar station. One crewman's hands trembled over the controls, Seaman First Class Adam Weller, just 18 months into active duty, smart, eager, but not yet seasoned. The hiss had come from his console, an unauthorized systems ping. A malfunction? Maybe, but more likely, human error. The room remained silent. Maddox stepped forward, each step a deliberate weight on the steel floor. "Mr. Weller," he said calmly, "do you want to tell me why you just made our ghost ring in enemy waters?" Weller's throat tightened. "Sir, I was rechecking the calibration. I didn't realize the ping circuit was active. It wasn't intentional." Maddox stopped just inches from the young sailor. "There's no unintentional in silent running," he said, voice low. "This vessel is designed to vanish. One sound, one slip. 134 lives become a statistic. Understood, sir?" "No, you don't," Maddox replied coldly. "Because if you did, you'd still be a shadow." Without raising his voice, Maddox turned, walked to the control console, and shut down the drill. "Drill aborted," he said. "XO, log it. Reason, breach in sound protocol. Source, sonar station." Lieutenant Commander Nash, the executive officer, scribbled silently. The rest of the crew kept their heads down. No one made eye contact with Weller. The drill was over, but the lesson had just begun. Later that evening, as the crew rotated shifts, Weller sat in the mess hall alone, pushing cold pasta across his tray. He could feel the distance growing between him and the others. Not anger, just doubt. And doubt, in a submarine, was poison. Then a voice. "Grab your gear," said Lieutenant Orozco, Chief of Systems. "You're with me for the next 24. Reactor." "Bay. No noise, no mistakes." Weller stood, tray forgotten. "Yes, sir." For the next several hours, he followed Orozco through every inch of the submarine's engineering deck. He inspected heat lines, adjusted water pumps, tightened vent locks. Every bolt had to be silent. Every valve had to turn smooth. If something clicked, squeaked, or clanged, it was his to fix. No one told him this was punishment. But it was, and Maddox hadn't forgotten either. Back in the control room, he reviewed the sonar logs. The ping Weller had sent out, though brief, could have traveled far enough to be detected. And this close to disputed waters, Chinese subs were known to shadow American vessels without revealing themselves. "Any new acoustic traces?" he asked Nash. "Nothing yet. But water's thick tonight. Could be someone just listening." Maddox narrowed his eyes. "Then we listen louder." And the night dragged on. At Oro 200 hours, the sonar console beeped. A faint signature. It came, once, then again. A slow, calculated rhythm. Orozco leaned in. "Sir, it's not terrain, it's mechanical. Propeller signature, faint. Could be a hand-class sub, drifting with us." "Bearing?" Maddox asked. 085. 2 miles out. Low noise, deliberate pacing. "They heard the ping," Nash said grimly. "No," Maddox replied. "They're testing. They want to see if we panic." He stared at the sonar screen, the pale green glow casting hard shadows on his face. "Maintain position," he said at last. "No speed changes, no pings, we go quiet. Let's show them how invisible we really are." Below, in the reactor room, Weller was adjusting heat regulators when the lights dimmed further and the ambient hum softened. He didn't need to be told. They were in full stealth. He swallowed hard. Whatever was happening, his mistake had started it, and the rest of the crew knew it too. For now, all they could do was wait, hold their breath, and listen. The USS Barrington hovered in the black stillness like a steel phantom. No lights shone from her hull. No vibration rippled from her blades. She simply existed, silent, invisible, deadly. But so did something else. For hours, the sonar screen pulsed with faint rhythms, barely perceptible but unmistakably artificial. The same contact, same slow turns. A predator circling a predator. In the control room, Commander Maddox stood motionless behind the sonar console, his jaw tight, arms crossed. He wasn't the kind of man who panicked, but even he couldn't ignore the uncomfortable truth. The hand-class submarine tracking them wasn't just lucky, it knew they were there. "They're mirroring our depth changes," whispered Petty Officer Lee, hunched over the console. "They don't ping, they just listen. Every time we dip, they dip. Every time we trim to port, they're right behind us." Lieutenant Commander Nash turned to Maddox. "Sir, I recommend launching decoys. At the very least, we test how close they're willing to follow." Maddox shook his head. "Not yet. We confirm they've made us first. A decoy is noise, and noise is weakness." Down in the reactor bay, Seaman Weller crouched over a steaming pipe, trying to ignore the thin sheen of sweat forming on his brow. Chief Orozco stood behind him, arms folded, watching. "Adjust that clamp," Orozco ordered. "Quarter turn, no metal contact." Weller did as told. The pipe gave a faint squeak. Orozco narrowed his eyes. Again, but quieter. "Yes, Chief." As Weller tightened the fitting, he whispered to himself, counting rotations, breathing in rhythm with the soft churn of the submarine systems. He didn't know about the Chinese vessel. He didn't know that one false vibration now could lead to a firing solution, but he felt the weight. He knew something was wrong. You could feel it in a sub, the way the air thickened, the way voices lowered, the way even footsteps vanished. When Weller finished, Orozco didn't say a word, just gave a nod. Weller didn't smile. He didn't deserve to, not yet. Back in the control room, Maddox leaned over the sonar display, studying the data. The contact had shifted again, closer this time. They've closed to within 1.2 nautical miles, Lee whispered. "Maintaining parallel speed." Nash turned to the commander. "They're walking us, sir. It's a tail." "Silent running protocol," Maddox ordered. "Full acoustic discipline. No shifting fluids. Shut down galley. Stabilize ballast. We become the ocean." Moments later, the already quiet ship fell into absolute stillness. Lights dimmed to blood red. Fans ceased. Even the reactor dropped to its minimum output threshold. It felt like death. But then, a faint ping. Low. Sharp. Not theirs. Enemy active. Sonar. Crews flinched. "Sir, contact just pinged. Not a full sweep. Just a rangefinder." "They're confirming we're not a whale," Nash said. "They already know," Maddox replied. "They just want us to blink." Another ping. Closer. Then silence. Then another contact. This one from the west. Cruz stared at his screen. "Sir, second sub, smaller profile, coming fast." "They brought a friend," Nash said flatly. "They're flanking us," Maddox said. "Pincer formation. If we run now, we reveal direction. If we hold, they close in." He turned to communications. "Radio room, prep tight beam laser burst to fleet command. Emergency ping. One time only. Use no reply tag." The radio man nodded and vanished toward the lower deck. "XO," Maddox said to Nash. "If they launch first, we drop all decoys and dive. No return fire, we evade. No war starts on my watch because of a junior sailor's twitch." "Yes, sir." "Speaking of which, where's Weller?" "Still down with Orozco." Maddox nodded slowly. "Bring him up." Minutes later, Weller entered the control room, flushed and exhausted. He stood at attention. "Sir." Maddox didn't speak at first. He just pointed to the sonar screen. "You see that signal?" "Yes, sir." "That's a Chinese submarine." It's been shadowing us since you sent that accidental ping. Weller's stomach twisted. Maddox didn't raise his voice. You gave away our position. We haven't confirmed if they're armed, but if they are, we're now in a fight we didn't choose. You know what happens in underwater engagements, seaman? Yes, sir. People don't die in war down here. They disappear. No graves, no dog tags. Just steel coffins, rotting on the sea floor. Yes, sir. You've worked hard these past 24 hours. You've earned some respect back. But I want you to remember something. This silence we fight in, it's sacred. You violate it. You break the covenant with every man on board. Weller's voice cracked. Understood, sir. Maddox nodded. Good. Because you're going to help fix this. Weller blinked. Sir? I want you to assist Petty Officer Lee with sonar masking, run redundancy checks, locate vulnerabilities in our acoustic shielding. No screw-ups. Yes, sir. And, Weller, sir, if we make it out of this, you'll come out knowing what it truly means to serve. The USS Barrington was no longer hiding. It was surviving. 2 enemy submarines, one a stealthy Han class, the other a smaller hunter-killer model, moved in coordination around them, tightening the noose. Each sonar ping was a warning. We see you. We know you're here. Move, and we strike. Inside the submarine, red lights bathed the control room. Every officer and enlisted sailor moved as though a single breath could give away their position. Commander Maddox stood over the command console, arms rigid at his sides. They haven't pinged us again in 10 minutes, Petty Officer Lee whispered. But they're both holding at opposite flanks. It's classic pressure positioning. Lieutenant Commander Nash added, if we surface, they'll tail us all the way to Japanese waters. If we dive, they might interpret it as an escape move and launch. They're daring us to flinch, Maddox said. But this crew doesn't blink. Down in sonar, Seaman Weller worked side by side with Lee. He was pale, focused, silent. His hands moved across the masking console like a pianist. He traced reverb trails from the Barrington's own systems, looking for anything that could be bleeding noise. Damping foam degradation at aft junction, he muttered. Lee nodded. Already logged. We corrected the adhesive failure last month, but at this depth, good catch. Cross-feedback on ballast cycle timing could be generating a rhythmic beat, Weller added. We might be singing without realizing it. Lee turned, then shut the music off. As Weller began to recalibrate the ballast timing, Maddox stepped into sonar. Report. Acoustic profile now under 8 decibels, Lee said. Best we can get without shutting down life support. Do it, Maddox ordered. Sir, you heard me. Switch air systems to passive cycle. Emergency oxygen rotation every 10 minutes. Weller blinked. That'll drop CO2 levels within an hour. Then we solve this in 59 minutes, Maddox said. Now move. Back in the control room, Nash stood watching the passive sonar line. Then, movement. Commander, he barked. Fast propulsion spike from the smaller. Contact. Bearing 2 M46. They're flanking to our stern. Maddox moved fast. Prepare decoys. 4 rounds. Don't launch until I say. Crews, the weapons tech, began inputting the sequence. But something didn't add up. Lee called from sonar. Sir, the spike. It's not a turn. Maddox turned. Sharply. Then what is it? They're diving. Hard. Fast. Depth. Descending below 1,000 feet. At that speed, they'll risk hull compression. They're not flanking, Maddox muttered. They're baiting. Crews stared at the weapons console. Sir, hand-class contact has gone dead silent. We lost them. Nash stiffened. They're maneuvering under our keel. Ready countermeasure tube 3, Maddox ordered. But Weller's voice suddenly broke through the radio. Commander, I think I know what they're doing, Maddox snapped toward the intercom. Speak. Weller's voice was fast but clear. They're running a sonar trap. One sub dives hard to trigger cavitation. Noise. That draws our attention and makes us turn or ping. When we do, the Han gets a clean passive read from directly below. Maddox narrowed his eyes. which gives them a firing solution. Yes, sir. For 3 seconds, there was silence. Then Maddox barked, "All hands, brace for rapid vertical drop." The order rang out like a torpedo bell. "Flood forward ballast tanks. Now, dive angle 20 degrees. The USS Barrington pitched forward, nosediving into the depths. Crew members
grabbed rails, straps, anything within reach. The sudden descent disrupted the enemy sonar lock just in time. Seconds later, a torpedo launch was detected. They fired.
Crews shouted. "Single contact, speed, 55 knots. Targeting our last position. Deploy countermeasures," Maddox ordered. A rush of compressed air fired decoy pods into the water. Each one mimicked the Barrington's signature. Temperature, shape, noise. The torpedo took the bait. Boom! The distant explosion shook the vessel. Lights flickered. The hull groaned under the pressure but held. Back in sonar, Lee gave a tense thumbs up. "Direct hit on decoy. We're clear. No active pursuit," Maddox exhaled. "Just once. Maintain depth. No course correction. Let them think we sank." Down in sonar, Weller slumped back, heart racing. His hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time, from adrenaline. He had seen the trap, called it, helped save them. Moments later, Maddox entered sonar in person. He walked up to Weller, stared him dead in the eyes, and said, "Not bad, sailor." Weller swallowed. "Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. This war's not over. But you just kept it from starting." The two locked eyes, commander and crewman, both changed by pressure. As the submarine drifted quietly through the deep, battered but intact, the crew began resetting stations. Life support returned. Lights brightened slightly. The worst had passed, but the lesson remained. The USS Barrington remained motionless, 900 feet beneath the surface, surrounded by absolute silence. No more pings, no more torpedo trails, just cold water pressing against her hull and the echo of what nearly was. Inside, the crew slowly returned to duty. Lights were restored to normal levels, ventilation resumed its rhythm, but no one spoke above a whisper, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Something invisible had passed through them and left them changed. Commander Maddox walked the corridor outside sonar, his boots making soft thuds against the metal deck. He moved like a man inspecting not a submarine, but a cathedral. He found Seaman Weller seated alone in the forward break room, hunched over a mug of rehydrated coffee he hadn't touched. Crewman. Weller stood so fast the mug tipped, contents spilling across the table. "Sir." "At ease," Maddox said, pulling out the seat opposite him. Weller sat slowly, eyes wide. "I reviewed the tape," Maddox said, voice quiet. "You identified their maneuver before any officer did." Weller opened his mouth to speak, but Maddox held up a hand. "I don't need your humility. I need your ears. You hear things most others don't. You sensed a trap, and you weren't afraid to speak up after making a mistake that nearly exposed us." Weller nodded, barely audible. "I just didn't want it to end like that, sir." Maddox tilted his head. "That's the difference between a recruit and a sailor. Recruits fear punishment. Sailors fear regret." Weller's jaw tensed. Maddox leaned forward slightly. "You dropped a protocol once, but you carried the weight. Then you lifted the crew when it mattered. That's the Navy." He stood, his posture tall and composed. "Chief Orozco recommended you for advanced sonar operations training." Weller blinked. "Me, sir? You earned it." "Congratulations, Petty Officer Third Class." Weller's eyes welled before he could suppress it. "Thank you, sir." Maddox turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. "One more thing," he said. "When you walk through this sub, you walk like every rivet matters. Because they do. Because we do." He nodded once and was gone. The next day, the USS Barrington rose quietly to periscope depth, guided by sonar paths Weller had helped tune. They threaded through the last edge of the Chinese formation without incident, then broke into open water. No one cheered. There was no announcement. There never is when the ocean lets you go. But every sailor aboard that steel vessel walked with a little more weight in their boots and a little more pride in their silence. And somewhere inside, a rookie who once dropped a ping had finally learned to listen. In the Navy, silence isn't just golden, it's sacred. It can mean the difference between life and death, war and peace, regret and redemption. Seaman Weller made a mistake, but he didn't let that mistake define him. He stayed, he listened, and when it mattered most, he spoke up. What would you have done in Commander Maddox's place? Would you have trusted the same man who almost got you killed? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your take, and if stories like this keep you thinking long after the screen goes dark, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Don't miss the next deep sea mission, only on Authority Watch.